What's up, everybody? It's Alex from Heavy New York. We are back at the St. Vitus basement, and today we are here with Erik of Lord Dying. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, no problem, man. Yeah, thank you.
It's so awesome to have you here. Your latest record, Mysterium Tremendium. I had a bit of a brain fart there, but Mysterium Tremendium came out via E1 a couple months ago. The record is absolutely awesome. Do you just want to give a rundown on how the making of the record has been and the reception thus far?
Yeah, it's been really positive. It's been great. It's a little bit of a different step for us from what we've done in the past. It's a lot more expansive, progressive, a lot more dynamics. The recording was great. It was we recorded with Mike Plotnikoff in Los Angeles. He produced it. We came in. We were really well prepared. We demoed everything prior to going there. We were really meticulous about every part. We wanted to be extremely prepared. We kind of hammered it out pretty fast in about 8 days. We spent a lot of time mixing, though. Like he would send mixes to us, and we'd approve them, and then eventually, finally, it went to mastering. We spent like a month and a half mixing it. But yeah, we're really happy with it. It's been a great response, and now we're touring on it. So
Yeah, awesome.
yeah.
What I've noticed with this record is that every song really kind of seemed to play by its own rules. I really consider it an experimental record. Was that kind of like a preconceived idea when making it?
Definitely. I mean, when we were writing it, we didn't want to let any specific genre define it. We wanted to let the songs go where they needed to go, where we felt like they needed to go themselves, and not have any limitations on what to do with it. So sometimes there's clean singing, sometimes there's death metal growls, sometimes there's piano, acoustic instruments, all sorts of stuff. So kind of let the songs go where we felt like they needed to.
Awesome. Now, being that, because I've always considered, even in your previous catalog, Lord Dying's music to be like very experimental. I don't know where to picture you guys on the periodic table of subgenres or something like that. So does that make it a little bit easier to kind of try new things by not kind of pigeonholing yourself?
Definitely. I mean, that's what I think. We didn't want to have any specific sound for this one. We really wanted to like experiment and push ourselves into different directions, which I feel like we did. Yeah, we wanted to do something way more dynamic. We wanted to do a concept record and kind of like let the journey take us wherever it would, you know?
Awesome.
Yeah.
What I find unique is because while you guys are an experimental band, I might be contradicting myself, but I feel like there is something that ties everything together. Is there ever something that kind of like, is there like an underlying armature behind all your songs in a way to kind of make it sound like a Lord Dying song?
Well, particularly for this record, it was more about the concept we were trying to follow, lyrically and also musically. I mean, the music was really just about experimenting, and just taking it, pushing ourselves, you know. I don't know if I'd say that there's like a specific way that a Lord Dying song needs to be, especially with the new one. I think it's just the album is just it's much more out there, you know, than anything else we've done. So yeah, but I don't know. It basically all kind of comes down to the riffs first, but yeah, I don't know if there's a specific thing that underlies a Lord Dying song, but it all starts with Chris and I, the other guitar player. We do all the writing for the most part, and we demo everything in Portland, and then we get it ready to go. Our awesome rhythm section, Matt and Chase, both live in Los Angeles. So we demo everything in Portland and send it to them, and then they come up with their parts. We meet up and then tour or record or whatever we got to do, you know.
You guys need a European member now, make it even more challenging.
Yeah, that would definitely make it more challenging. LA is far enough.
Now, you mentioned that there's like you focus a lot on the concept. Do you need to like hear music before lyrics come in, or does the concept in itself also maybe shape like the outcome of the music itself as well?
Well, like for this one, definitely like the lyrics, the titles were thought of before any lyrics or any music in a lot of cases. Like for instance, the title of the album, Mysterium Tremendum, was thought of maybe 10 years even before we started working on it. We knew we wanted to do a concept record, and this was a title we had and what we wanted to do. And then over like a 2-year time frame or so, I kept coming up with titles, thinking of things, thinking of maybe like possible titles. I keep a lot of possible titles anyways, and then the music comes next. The music usually happens, and then that's when I start to think of melodies, and then I start to think, okay, well, what do we want to say with this title, and then we come up with lyrics last usually.
Okay, fair enough. Being that this is a concept-driven record, are you trying to maybe inform a listener on this concept, kind of get them to see what you're trying to express, or could your music still also be open to interpretation?
Both, really. I think that for us, it was a really cathartic process. There was a lot of we were dealing with a lot of death or close to death in the family. All of us, really, and that kind of guided the concept in a way. Mysterium Tremendum basically means to us, it's like an all-encompassing term. It basically means everything. It's sort of like an existential term. To see where you really exist in the greater picture of things, which can be everything, be prior to life, death, post, whatever. It's everything, and so that was kind of a hard concept to tackle, but because we were kind of dealing with so much death in the family and surrounding us, it sort of went down that road, and it was a cathartic process to write it and deal with that. But there's also, that's the thing, like it's pretty dark on the surface, but the idea was to try to show hope through it as well, and I hope that people see that with it. But it's also totally open to interpretation because no one really knows what happens when you die, right? So,
of course. Yeah. Well, like a lot of people would say, oh, death, it's been like done before. Like there's just so much you could tackle within on a personal level, on a subjective level, like on a spiritual level. Like there's so much there's so much uncharted territory within that concept alone still to this day. Like you mentioned, like there's a hopeful experience, like Yob's record was like that, about the near-death experience Mike recently had. So I feel like in the end, it's something you're expressing your personal self to, but I think people could also take it into their own right and maybe relate it to their own personal experience.
Absolutely, and that's what we hope people get out of it. We met a guy when we were on this tour in New Mexico that said he was hit by a car. He was riding a bike. He had a near-death experience from that. He was in recovery in the hospital. He had to go through rehab to learn to walk again. And this was around the time that our album came out, like a month ago. And he said he listened to it, and it was like it brought a lot of hope to him. He was listening to it the whole time he was going through rehab, and it was like, wow, that's really touching. That's really cool to hear, like that he got something out of it that that we got out of it too, really. So that's cool to be able to share that.
Can hearing people's experience on your record maybe change your perception on the record at all, as opposed to when you first wrote it or were writing it?
I think so. I think that happens with all of our music. It's sometimes you learn more about it afterwards. Like I don't know. It's always a learning process, and things change all the time. So much with life.
I mean, when you put out a record, there's a saying that when you put out an album, it immediately becomes theirs. So like. Totally. In the end, you could maybe think of something or hear something that you never even thought of.
Totally, yeah, and and I think it's great when that happens with records too, and hopefully, people get their own experience out of it.
Of course. Now, one thing I was also really curious about with this record is it varies a lot in different song lengths. I mean, like I think like the first track was like 5.5 minutes, and then you have a song that's like 8 minutes, and then So, at what point, how do you know when a song is finished?
Yeah, no, with this album, it was a lot different. Like, it really goes back to that idea of, like, the song wouldn't be finished until we felt like it was finished. That's really what it was, until everything was 100% together. Like, we layered so many guitars and different parts, like acoustics, piano, multi-layered vocals. We knew the songs inside and out. Like, as we were writing them, we knew exactly what we wanted to do, and it wasn't finished until we felt like it was finished. Like, until we were certain it was finished, which in some cases was like 2 minutes, some cases like 9 minutes. So it depended on, it all was like what we felt like the song had to have, Yeah. Like, we let the song decide itself.
It's a Cascadian thing, like I say. Like, Yob, freaking... I think Toxic Holocaust is the only band from that region that makes a song within, like, the 2-3 minute mark.
That's true, man. Joel knows how to pump out some awesome songs, though, man. I love... And that there's something to be said about that, like, a 3-minute song that's catchy. It's fucking awesome. Yeah. he knows how to write the shit out of a thrash song.
Yeah. But also, to make a long song and still keep it engaging, which I feel this record did, is also a challenge. You know what I mean?
It is, and that it's almost a little different for us too. Like we never really had anything over like 5 minutes before, until this record, and like I've always we've always been fans of Yob, and it's really impressive to see like how to make a song move, or like the movements that they'll have, like the song over like a 12, sometimes 20 minutes, and it's like it really takes you somewhere, and it's like that's writing long form for sure, and that's difficult. I don't know if we've even come close to doing something like that, but we have so many parts too in a song, so like there's something about like long form writing and repetition to make something like trip itself up. I don't know what I'm trying to say here. There's like crescendos in music, and I mean Yob does it beautifully. Like on the Marrow, that song's great. That's a really long one, and I love that song.
Oh, you should have seen it when they played it live in Brooklyn a couple months ago. Oh my God, you would be slipping on the floor with how many tears were on the floor.
I bet, man. Yeah, that's a beautiful one for sure.
And another thing I was curious about, I have two more questions for you, is when you're playing live versus, you're writing the material, you're getting the album done. When you're playing live, do you try to execute the material exactly how people want to hear it on the album, or do you try to make the live presence a little bit different than if people were just listening to you?
Well, it's really hard with the new stuff to execute it like we did on the record because there's just too many guitar parts. We tried to make the most compelling version of the songs on the record we can for live, and then always the live songs kind of take on a little bit of a form of their own too, and then you really get into a groove with it and you hit your stride on tour, and then it becomes like it's almost becomes something different. It's like it's an entity in itself, different than what the record was even. So that's fun to do that way anyways. It keeps it interesting.
Yeah. I'll throw in, a 20-minute long guitar solo or drum solo. Why not?
Yeah, wherever it needs to go.
And the final question I want to ask you, and we talked about it a little bit, but coming from Portland, Oregon, with bands like Yob or Toxic Holocaust, but Agalloch is also from in there. Please, that band needs to come back. But like, was there a scene that you guys kind of like are associated with in Portland, Oregon, or was it more like going outside your state lines in order to get your name out there a little bit more?
No, I mean we definitely started in Portland. Like we played just locally a ton. We had a lot of good friends that have helped us along the way. I'd say it's been almost 10 years now. We started in 2010. We started touring in 2012. We had a lot of old friends. Like Witch Mountain took us out for the first time. That was great.
Last year, they're great people.
They're awesome, yeah. They're phenomenal. Red Fang as well. They helped us. They took us out on the next national tour. Before that, we did like some regional stuff that we booked ourselves with other friends bands. Like we did some shows with Donova, and at the time Lecherous Gaze from the Bay Area. Just playing locally, we'd play with a lot of other bands that were touring and became friends. And I don't know, just doing it yourself at first, and then it became easier doing like international stuff. Red Fang took us to Europe for the first time. That was amazing. And then after that, like it's just kind of like we toured a lot. So.
And I'd imagine, I don't know how close it is, but being that it is driving distance between like the Bay Area and Seattle, I'd figure that there's cool regional shows you could do, right?
For sure, yeah. Seattle was one we played a lot. The Bay Area is a little far from Portland, but we'd still go down there. Like once you get down there, you might as well also do like LA and San Diego and stuff, because that's not super far from there. But it's like a good 10. Sometimes 11 hours, depending on how long you're taking to get to the Bay Area from Portland. But Seattle's only like 3 hours, so you can go up there, play Seattle, Bellingham, Vancouver, Canada. So, all of that stuff's pretty close. Northwest regional stuff.
Awesome. Yeah. So before we go, I want to thank you so much for your time today.
Yeah, no problem, man.
Yeah. Is there just anything else you're doing this small U.S. run right now? Is there just anything else with the band that you would like to promote in terms of touring? This is going to be uploaded by midnight, so if there's anything you're not allowed to talk about, don't say it here.
There's a lot more touring coming up. I can't really reveal it yet, but it'll be announced soon.
Okay. You'll tell me when to turn the camera off.
Sure.
Well, thank you so much, Eric.
No problem, man. Thank
Everybody, we are here with Erik of Lord Dying, Mysterium Tremendum. I said it right this time, right?
Yeah.
Be sure to pick that up if you haven't already. This is Alex from Heavy New York. We'll see you next time.